Hey all, Dr. Jared here, proud to be coming to you with part one of two of our Sleep Masterclass here. As we get started, I just want to start by appreciating you for taking the time to invest in yourself. You know, so often the norm is to just take the easy out, take the drug, take the whatever, and really even just by being on here, it shows that you care enough about yourself, or even if you're watching this for somebody else, a sibling, a child, a spouse, a parent, you know, whatever it might be, that you're care enough that you want to increase your knowledge and be better. And, you know, I was part of a seminar a couple weeks ago where they talked about getting information and simply turning it into knowledge is not very effective, but getting information, turning it into knowledge, and then turning that knowledge into action is really where successful people operate. So if you want a better life, whatever that is, better quality sleep, more energy, weight loss, less pain, whatever it might be, you know, really turning this webinar into action is a great opportunity to live a better quality of life. And, you know, when we talk about sleep, sleep is something that everybody knows is good for them. Very, very similar to everybody knows that sugar is bad for them, but sugar can be addictive. It can be limiting. It can cause weight gain. It can cause energy loss. It can cause cancer. It can cause all these different things. And just about everybody in the world knows that sugar is not good for them, but it can be hard to limit. Very similarly, I think just about everybody knows that sleep is important for health, but at the same time, it's easy to stay out late. It's easy to feel run down in the middle of the day and grab a soda, a cup of coffee, you know, take a stimulant or take a sleeping pill or, you know, a variety of other things. And ultimately, you know, one of the things that I love about this is it's one of the most applicable, with also being possibly or probably the lowest cost thing you could do that could radically improve your quality of life. Sleep and quality sleep has the ability to do everything from relieve symptoms of anxiety or depression, help you lose weight, help you increase muscle, help you lower your blood pressure. I mean, all sorts of different things. And we're going to cover the why and the how to accomplish each of these things. Additionally, if you saw the video that I made leading up to this, we're going to talk about the biggest limiters of sleep. So for some people, they have trouble falling asleep. Other people fall asleep easy, but they wake up in the middle of the night, especially between 1 and 3 a.m., and they just can't go back to sleep. Other people sleep all night and sleep for long periods of time, but just feel like they didn't get quality sleep and they don't feel rested or recharged. And we're going to cover all the different ways that can affect you. And so I'll tell you, you know, this is, I'll say, very personal for me because, you know, I know that with seeing so many of you in the clinic, sleep is something that can increase pain. It can increase, you know, the other things that I just mentioned, but we've had so many people that when they start getting adjusted, their nerve system calms down and they get better quality of sleep. Ultimately, sleep is for body repair and for recovery, but the single largest thing that it does is it affects your neurology. Sleep is when you process trauma. And I don't mean like severe traumas like car accidents or major emotional traumas or things like that, which it does happen there. But sleep is where you process what they call the micro traumas, the stressors of the day, the interactions you might have had with a coworker or one of your children or a friend or, you know, getting stressed in traffic or whatever it might be. And so ultimately, we know that sleep affects how you feel, how you look, and everything in between there. And so knowing that and knowing that it's something that for so many people, there are some very simple, possibly even easy and very applicable action steps. To me, it's crazy to think about that 50 to 70 million Americans have enough sleep disturbance that they would have what's called a diagnosable sleep disorder, meaning they're flat out can't get enough sleep, and their body is not actually getting the quality of sleep that they need. And when you think about 300 plus million Americans, you're talking about give or take 1 in 5 or 1 in 6 people can't get the quality of sleep, and it leads to a plethora of medications, disease diagnoses, stress hormones, and everything in between. So we're going to cover a few of these, why sleep affects disease. So for instance, one of the things that sleep does is it takes your body out of what they call sympathetic, which is your fight or flight, your very like agitated or very intense response. And it takes you back into that slower, deeper breathing, parasympathetic response. And so the stress hormone, specifically cortisol, is the stress hormone that you link that keeps your blood sugar up and keeps you going. So for instance, marathon runners that are training and running really long distances, they have way higher levels of cortisol than, let's say, somebody who sprints or somebody who doesn't run. So even though they might be more fit, you may have heard this in a previous masterclass, but marathon runners who routinely run marathons actually have similar heart attack and heart disease rates of fully sedentary people. So somebody who's not in shape at all versus somebody who's in really good running shape or really long distance running shape. And it's linked to the hormones that are created because of the stress response. And so those stress hormones, among other things, they keep you in sympathetic or your fight or flight neurology. So one of the biggest things relating to heart disease and stroke is that they raise your blood pressure, which raised blood pressure over time can lead to that. Additionally, as you might imagine, taking a medication that doesn't address the root cause may lower your blood pressure, but has all sorts of side effects like damage to your liver, kidneys, and a variety of other things. Also, because cortisol the way it keeps you having energy, or the way that it keeps you going, is it causes sustained blood sugar increase. And as you all know, increased sugar in your blood is linked to diabetes. And then additionally, it causes you to retain body fat. It causes you, I'm going to say that again, it causes you to retain body fat. So those people who say, I just can't seem to lose weight, especially as I age, one of the things to look at are you able to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep regularly? I'm going to say that again. Are you getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep regularly? If you were in the clinic this last week, at the time of this recording, you heard a quote from one of my favorite books on sleep, which is a book called Why We Sleep. And that book, Why We Sleep, it lists a whole variety of research. And one of the research studies that it mentions is people with that are over 45 years old that get 6 hours or less of sleep per night versus those that get 7 to 8 plus have a 200% higher likelihood of having a heart attack or stroke in their lifetime. It literally doubles the rate by changing the amount of sleep you get by 1 to 2 hours. So think about that. How does lack of sleep affect disease? It affects your hormones. It affects your body's ability to repair. And so I'm going to go through 9 signs that you need to get better sleep. So if you check the box yes for any or especially multiple of these, I would really encourage you to consider what or how can you decide to get better sleep. So first of all, we already talked about blood pressure. If your blood pressure starts to go up, one of the things that you need to do is look at your stress hormones and look at your quality of sleep. The next thing, the ability, if you're starting to lose memory or inability to focus. For instance, one study, again, out of that book, Why We Sleep, talked about children with ADD and ADHD medication. And they linked that children who have to get woken up, for instance, like there may be like musts for this, like they have to get up because mom or dad works and they have to get to daycare or early care before school or things like that, or kids that are allowed to stay up late. Children need way more sleep because they're growing. Their body just like your body repairs during sleep, children predominantly grow during sleep. So some children need 9, 10, possibly even 11 hours of sleep, which is why bedtimes that are at 7 or 8 o'clock for young children are vitally important. Additionally, even as people get into those preteen or teenage years, there's still more sleep that's necessary as the person grows. And if you want to get taller and be more fit in your children, the amount of sleep that they get is a big deal. But going back to the focus or memory component of this, sleep helps with all the different hormones and what are called your brain waves. So there's alpha, beta, and delta brain waves, which is essentially how fast or how stimulated your brain is. And so your brain has better memory when it's calm. Your brain has better ability to focus. And currently our solution so frequently in America today is seeking medication, whether that's for a child for ADD or ADHD medications, which are stimulants, which are universally shown to put holes in a child's brain. So I'm not saying you should or shouldn't do it, but think about if you knew yourself or one of your children's children, if you're a grandparent or whatever it might be, just how damaging ADD and ADHD medications are on the body. They also inhibit body growth, normal development, hormone development, and so many other things. It's like getting quality sleep could negate so very much of that, as well as regular chiropractic care and a variety of other things. Sleep is linked to your immune system. You probably have all done this where you go on vacation. Maybe you stay up too late, or you eat worse foods, or maybe drink more alcohol or whatever it might be. And it's like, oh man, we got sick after our trip, or we went on vacation and got sick. Well, quality sleep is linked to a much stronger immune system. Another sign of that you're not getting enough sleep is if you feel like you just have to sleep in on the weekends. So not that it's a bad idea to sleep on the weekends if your body's trying to catch up, but thinking about it, if you just feel dead and you have to sleep for 2, 3, 4 extra hours in the morning on a Saturday or Sunday, that's a sign that your body's not getting enough sleep and it's catching up. The next one, number 5 there, your blood sugar is creeping up. So one of the things that could help someone, even if they didn't change their foods, if they're starting to get into that pre-diabetic range, is to get better quality of sleep. Additionally, daily caffeine use, but more importantly, caffeine in the afternoon. So a couple things about caffeine. I personally am not opposed to caffeine in itself. I mean, it is a drug, so it affects your body. The way caffeine works, its mechanism of action is it causes sustained blood sugar increase, similar to what stress hormones do. So for example, I think of like European countries like France. It's famous to, have something sweet at the end of a meal and then have an espresso or a cappuccino or a cup of coffee or whatever. The reason it does that is if your normal blood sugar is this, and when you eat a piece of pie or something, it goes to this, caffeine will do this. It'll force it to stay more in the middle. And so that's how caffeine works. And there's a reason for the caffeine crash, is because your body really doesn't want that to be the case. And so caffeine in itself is a way to give you energy right away in the morning. But at the same time, if you use it multiple times a day, the reason it affects, remember when we talked about quality of sleep, caffeine significantly inhibits quality of sleep. So caffeine has depending on your metabolism, a 5 to 6 hour half-life. So it stays in your body for 5 to 6 hours minimum. But for most people, the blood work analysis that's been done shows that caffeine is still in your system about 12 hours after consumption. So if you have a cup of coffee at 5 a.m., it's out of your body at 5 p.m. But if you have a cup of coffee at 2 p.m., it's still in your system all the way up till 2 a.m. potentially. And that decreases your body's ability to get REM sleep and the deep non-REM sleep, both are which heal in different ways. So some things to consider with caffeine. Caffeine is one of those where having it in the morning, there's conflicting studies, or at least debate about whether or not that has any real negative effect. But universally, caffeine in the afternoon is shown to have a negative effect on your body. Multiple uses of caffeine in a day show negative stress hormones, which affect weight gain. They also affect mood. Something else, when you talk about melatonin, which your body produces, and mood, I'm talking about anxiety and depression type symptoms. The one study about morning caffeine, it shows that really you should wait about 90 minutes before consuming caffeine in the morning for best bodily regulation for your mood. So if you're somebody that struggles with anxiety or depression, caffeine is linked to both. So something to consider would be not having it right away in the morning and then replacing it if you have it in the afternoon. A couple of great replacements. The first one, and the one that I like most, and the one that I use most days of the week, but specifically if you come into the clinic, you know that Monday, Wednesday, and now Thursdays are longer days where we have more office hours. I take our supplement. It's called Max Fit. So Max Fit is a supplement that I take every Monday and Wednesday. And what it is zero caffeine, but it does have green coffee bean extract. It also has ashwagandha that helps lower stress hormones, but sustain energy. It has a little bit of creatine, and it has one other ingredient that I'm blanking on right here at the moment. But I take 3 Max Fit capsules right after lunch, and that helps me with a more sustained energy level throughout the afternoon and into the evening with zero caffeine, zero effect on sleep. So if you need something as a possible replacement to your afternoon caffeine, Max Fit would be a great choice. They also now 2 other things that would be a good opportunity. One is Max Greens. So we carry Max Greens. So they've shown conclusively in multiple studies that the green, the part of the plant that makes energy, also actually can pass energy to people. So this is why people sometimes get energy from like raw juicing and things like that. Now, of course, if you want to purchase or make raw juice specifically dominant in vegetable juices, that's a great idea. Now, if you want to save time or even frankly save money, the Max Greens is dehydrated vegetable juice. It's the equivalent of roughly 2 servings of vegetables in a scoop, and it is linked to giving your body more energy. The other one is some of these, what they call mushroom drinks. So like mud water is probably the most famous. Mud water is like reishi, lion's mane mushrooms, and a couple other things that help with metabolism and stimulation. And so the one thing I struggle with, and I do use mud water personally, but I struggle with it. It doesn't taste great. So I personally will do Max Greens sometimes, and I do Max Fit several times a week. So these are some of your caffeine opportunities. Number 8 on this 9 signs you need better sleep. You can't stop hitting snooze. If you're getting sleep, in most cases, you should be waking up before your alarm. So an alarm, the ideal situation for an alarm is that it's set so that you don't miss work, so that you don't violate your commitment schedule, whether that's getting to school or whatever it might be. But really, in a healthy sleep schedule, you should be waking up before your alarm. And snoozing is linked to high stress hormone increase. So when your alarm goes off, it takes your body from that parasympathetic right back into fight or flight, which is a really negative effect on your body. And if you're snoozing every 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 9 minutes, whatever it might be, you're throwing your body into severe fight or flight. And what research also shows is that hitting snooze will significantly actually decrease what's felt as in your quality of sleep. And the last one is irritable or moody. Could probably understand why that might be the case, and really just look at how it works. Now, I mentioned REM sleep and then non-REM deep sleep. So there's 4 stages of non-REM sleep. There's the lightest stage 1, then stage 2, then stage 3, then stage 4. I should really probably go like this. So if you were awake here, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, REM. REM is in rapid eye movement. The only part of your body or your organ systems that speed up during sleep is your brain. Your neurologic component, your brain speeds up. It's almost like if you've ever seen that movie, Inside Out. It's a kid's movie. It's animated. But I think, there's Inside Out and now Inside Out 2 are both released. Great aspect of addressing like how your body has hormones, how it processes, how it stores memories. Again, it's an adaptation, but it's a cool thing. Sleep is our restorative process. And so one of the things that I think is so important about sleep is that sleep processes our micro traumas. So like I said earlier, we're not talking about like rape or being fired or like major spousal disagreement or something like that. But in every given day, the term psychologists use is micro trauma. You go through multiple micro traumas. You have interactions that are less than ideal, and your brain needs to process them for you to be healthy. And so here's the thing: sleeping pills, other things that make you sleepy like Benadryl, alcohol, THC, caffeine, these all actually inhibit the processing of microtraumas. And ironically, so do antidepressants. So SSRIs, serotonin reuptake inhibitors, all these things decrease and nearly stop microtraumas. And so the tough part about that is that means you have an accumulation. So if somebody takes a sleeping pill every night to sleep, they might get 6, 8, 10, 12 hours of sleep, but actually they're because their brain doesn't function properly. Sleeping pills are linked majorly to dementia and Alzheimer's. They're linked to more psychotic episodes. They're linked to more emotional conditions. And so I'm not telling you if you're on a sleeping pill not to take one, but the same thing, you're going to hear this over and over. It's looking at what can you do, what can you change to not need the sleeping pill. It's the same thing for Benadryl. Benadryl and things like Tylenol PM, not recommended for regular use because they're linked to dementia. Alcohol, THC, we already talked about caffeine in detail, but a lot of people have a drink to fall asleep, to decrease the stress of their day. And so if you are going to do that, your body metabolizes a drink every 1-ish hours. So this, I think, when we go back to like things that maybe worked for our generations ahead of us, alcohol is not healthy for you. I'm not saying that, but the reason, that term, it's 5 o'clock, people have the 5 o'clock drink and go to bed at 9 o'clock and they only have one. It's because they have that drink and then their body's metabolized and it's out of their system so that they get good sleep. But those people that have a drink to fall asleep or have multiple drinks every night, all linked to decrease in microtrauma processing and all the things. Now, THC, there's lots of people who take an edible and with CBD and THC. Now, CBD, very different. CBD is not linked to affecting this, but the THC component inhibits trauma processing. So you might sleep, but you're not processing. And so while these things can eliminate the feeling of, let's say, anxiety early, they don't, they're linked to increasing anxiety when they're not in your system, which therefore can create dependence. And as I go through this, if this is like, man, this is my coping mechanisms, or this is what I do, we talked about 50 to 70 million people having a sleep disorder. There's actually more adults linked to having an emotional or mood disorders in this country. And here's something that's interesting. There's not a single emotional or mood disorder that doesn't have a negative sleep component. There's not a single person or a single condition that has a mood-based condition that they're trying to heal from that doesn't also have a sleep issue with that. So think about that and think about how willing you are to make some changes within this. Now, there's a thing called what does the brain do? So one of the things that we talk about really frequently in healing is your body heals while you're sleeping. And so there's a term that I've never shared before, but that's another deep brain research thing that talks about what's called glutamic flow. So glutamic flow is your body's flushing, clearing out your system. So glutamic flow is shown to do everything from rid your body of infectious bacteria to get heavy metals out of your system, to overall just flat out detox your body. So glutamic flow detoxes or flushes your system. And so, so that's something to really consider, is like, what are you missing by not valuing sleep? And this would go back to making the decision. So one of the last things that we're going to talk about in part 1 of this masterclass are what can cause the sleep issues if you're trying to avoid it. So starting with falling asleep. So falling asleep specifically, screens and blue light overstimulate your brain. So blue light comes off of every screen, but the closer the screen is to your face. So for instance, this thing right here, the cell phone, high levels of blue light in children, allowing them to be on a Nintendo, an iPad, a tablet right before bed. Television screens do the same thing. They make glasses that are just blue light glasses. They also, you can pay if you do have glasses to have blue light blockers inserted into your frames. But screens before bed, so it's recommended that you decrease or turn off screens about an hour before bed. Minimum is enough to calm your brain and let it be more ready to go to sleep. Additionally, food and water before bed. So this isn't always doable. I fully acknowledge that. I used the example last time we did a sleep masterclass that there's only about an hour and a half between the time that I personally get home from the office and the time that we're in bed and asleep. So to eat, I'm going to have to a couple days a week break this rule, but the other days I try and follow it exactly. But food, you should avoid consuming food ideally 3 hours before going to bed, and fluids of any type 1 hour before bed. So really you're trying to allow your body to get out of putting blood and energy into digesting and switch it over into energy for healing. So in an ideal world, the way you set up your dinner schedule is to not eat 3 hours before bed and then not drink an hour before bed. And if you do that, not only can it help you with falling asleep, but it can help you with staying asleep. So both those things can really be helpful. Turning off screens. And then the last thing is, and we're going to cover this more in the next one, doing something that causes sorting within your brain. So sorting out the day, like reading, journaling, sitting quietly, giving your brain a chance to sort so that it doesn't wake you up and sort in the middle of the night. And so as we finish this part 1 of the Sleep Masterclass, I hope that gives you plenty of things to think about. I would ask you to think, what are the things that I'm doing that could affect my sleep? And what's the simplest, lowest cost thing that you can do, whether it's cutting caffeine in the afternoon, replacing it with MaxFit, forcing yourself to leave your cell phone in the kitchen or plugged in, getting off screens, reading a book at the end of the night, journaling, whatever it might be, but ultimately, or working with your doctor and potentially us to help you no longer need some of the medications that can negatively influence your sleep and just frankly live better. So a couple things I'll leave you with. First of all, the first mystery word is sleep. So the first mystery word is sleep. But for those of you that don't regularly get adjusted, chiropractic adjustments in the largest studies done on chiropractic, the single most commonly noticed thing is that people sleep better when they're well adjusted. And think about it. Why wouldn't you? Chiropractic directly affects your neurology. And so it's a calming effect. It pushes your body more into the rest and digest or the parasympathetic. So people who are well adjusted tend to sleep better. Additionally, for protecting you from some of these things, so some of the things that we're talking about, There's other internal things that you can look at. And so there are a bunch of things around food, and we're going to cover that on the second masterclass. But if you're struggling with sleep issues, either talk to one of your doctors at your next adjustment, or set up, if you're an active or current client, set up a complimentary, what's called LRQ, which is a life risk questionnaire, with our nutritionist, Mackenzie, and she can go through with you things that you may be doing that you could change that would help your sleep. And if as long as you're a current client, that appointment is complimentary up to twice per year. So setting up an appointment with our nutritionist, or taking these action steps into your hands and living a completely, I'll say, better life. Appreciate your time. Have a very blessed day.